Has someone ever said something that stayed with you, not because it was true, but because it hurt? Maybe it was just a glance, a careless comment, or worse, a silence so loud it echoed in your chest. And suddenly, you're spiraling, angry, bothered, replaying it in your head 1,000 times, trying to figure out why it got to you so deeply, why it stole your peace, why it could ruin your entire day when it probably meant nothing to them. You tell yourself not to care, but you do. You try to brush it off, but it sticks. And you wonder, how do other people stay so calm? How do they let things go so easily while you feel every word like a bruise? But what if I told you the goal isn't to change them? What if I told you that freedom isn't about getting others to treat you better? It's about becoming someone who doesn't get shaken when they don't. This isn't about pretending you're okay. This isn't about suppressing your anger. It's about learning to master your peace. Because once you understand this one internal shift, once you see what's really happening beneath the surface, you'll never feel angry or bothered by anyone again. Let's begin. Number 1, why people get under your skin. I remember standing in a circle of coworkers during a casual Friday lunch. Everyone was laughing, trading stories, making plans. I cracked a joke. Something simple, lighthearted. No one reacted. No laughter. No glance. It was as if my voice evaporated the moment it left my mouth. A second later, someone else said something nearly identical, and the room lit up. Laughter, nods, that warm, unspoken approval. I stood there, holding my smile like a mask, pretending not to notice. But inside, something burned. It wasn't the joke. It wasn't even them. It was what it triggered. This deep, familiar feeling of being invisible, of not being enough to hold attention. It was a reminder of every moment I'd ever felt overlooked, unheard, unseen. And for hours, even days after, it sat in my chest like a weight I couldn't name. I told myself I was overreacting, that it wasn't personal, that maybe they just didn't hear me. But my nervous system wasn't buying it. My body remembered what my logic tried to dismiss. Here's the truth. No one tells you. We don't get angry because of what was said. We get angry because it touched something unfinished in us. A wound, a doubt, a fear we secretly believe, that we're not good enough, that we're forgettable, that we have to earn space in every room we enter, that we only matter if we're chosen. And when someone, even unintentionally, brings that fear to the surface, our mind doesn't just react to them. It reacts to everything that came before. The old pain, the early rejection, the unresolved stories we carry in silence. Anger at its core is a defense mechanism. It's our body trying to protect us from harm, from disrespect, from the fear that we are somehow less than. But the intensity of that anger that comes from within, from the story we've been telling ourselves for years without realizing it. From the emotional residue that was never cleaned up. You see, someone's words might sting, but they only turn into rage when they land on a place inside us that was already sore. When someone questions your intentions, and it keeps you up all night, it's rarely about them. It's about the part of you that still questions yourself. When someone ignores your voice and it ruins your day, it's about the part of you that learned early on that your voice didn't matter. These moments are never just about that moment. They are echoes, flashbacks, invitations to heal what hasn't been healed. And this is why some people seem to move through life unfazed, while others feel like they're constantly being poked and prodded by every comment, every glance, every omission. It's not about sensitivity. It's about unfinished pain. The more unhealed you are, the more you place your peace in other people's hands. And when your peace is external, you're at the mercy of every careless word, every offhand remark, every ignored message. You react not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is still on high alert, still scanning for signs that the old story is repeating itself. But you are not your pain. You are not your past. And just because something hurts doesn't mean it's true. The power doesn't lie in making the world softer. It lies in making your inside stronger. The more you heal, the fewer buttons you have to press. The more you see clearly, the less you take personally. And the more grounded you become in your own worth, the less you need others to affirm it. Because the more unfinished pain you carry, the easier it is for people to press buttons. Because you've left your peace in their hands. And the good news, you can take it back. Number 2, how we surrender our power. Every time you get upset over someone's opinion, it's like handing them a remote control to your nervous system. They press annoy, and you flinch. They press ignore, and your entire energy shifts. Your mood spirals. Your mind replays the moment over and over like a scratched record that can't find its rhythm. Why? Because you've unknowingly built your inner world around their approval. You've tied your peace to how someone else behaves, what they say, how they look at you, whether they include you or not, and so they hold the remote. Not because they deserve it, but because you gave it away. You see, anger isn't always aggression. Sometimes it's attachment. Attachment to being heard, to being seen, to being right, to being understood. You don't rage because they hurt you. You rage because you needed them not to, because your peace was sitting in their hands like something fragile, and they dropped it. Maybe they didn't mean to. Maybe they never asked to hold it. But when you've trained yourself to find safety in how people treat you, even the slightest discomfort can feel like betrayal. And suddenly, you're not just upset, you're unraveling. We spend so much of our emotional lives in reaction mode, responding to how people treat us. What they post, how quickly they reply. Whether they look excited to see us, we read into tone. We analyze silence. We twist ourselves into anxiety knots over things we can't control. And each time we convince ourselves that if they just act better, we'd feel better. But here's the truth. That's not empowerment. That's dependence. That's building your worth like a house of cards, one windy opinion. And it all collapses. But what if you didn't need their validation? What if you didn't require them to treat you a certain way in order to feel okay? What if you could wake up and choose peace? Not because everyone cooperated, but because your peace stopped depending on anyone but you. Imagine how different life would feel if someone's cold tone didn't ruin your mood. If being left out didn't make you question your worth. If someone's misunderstanding didn't make you spiral into self-doubt. That's not detachment, that's power. That's you reclaiming the remote and saying, no one else gets to control how I feel today. And yes, it's hard, especially when you were taught that love, acceptance, and peace all come from the outside. But the moment you stop needing the world to behave is the moment you stop being its prisoner. That's when everything starts to shift. You stop performing for validation. You stop chasing apologies you don't need. You stop rehearsing arguments in your head, trying to win battles no one else is even fighting. Instead, you start choosing alignment. You start choosing yourself. You start breathing before reacting. And you ask, is this worth my energy, or am I just giving my power away again? Because the real question is not, why are they treating me this way? It's why does their treatment own me this deeply? And when you get quiet enough to answer that, you don't just feel better, you become better. Stronger, softer in the places you used to be sharp. Clearer in the moments you used to be clouded. You realize your power was never in how loudly you could respond, but in how peacefully you could walk away. Not out of apathy, but out of wisdom. Because peace isn't passive, it's a declaration, a boundary, a return to self. And that moment, that's when the remote comes back home. Number 3, the core shift. Detaching with presence. Here's the shift that changes everything. It sounds simple, but it's the most powerful truth you'll ever carry. You don't need to control how people act. You need to master how you respond. That's it. That's the whole game. Most of us walk through life trying to manage the uncontrollable, other people's moods, their tone, their timing, their attention. We try to adjust ourselves so they approve. We try to speak softer so they stay. We try to explain more so they understand. But that's an exhausting life, a life of reaction. A life built on the hope that if others behave well enough, we'll finally feel peace inside. But peace doesn't come from how the world moves around you. It comes from how still you can remain in the middle of it all. That's the gift of detached presence. It's the ability to stay awake, to stay present, to stay open, without absorbing everything. It's the ability to witness the storm without becoming the storm, to feel the heat of someone's words without catching fire. Imagine it like this. Someone throws criticism at you. Maybe they say, "You're so selfish," or "You never listen," or "You think you're better than everyone." Before your heart would race, your jaw would clench, your mind would start building a case. How dare they say that? You'd get defensive. You'd start spiraling. And even if you didn't respond out loud, you'd carry it with you. Replay it. Try to rewrite it. You'd let it shape your worth. But when you begin to detach with presence, something different happens. You hear the words, and instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe. You ask yourself, is this about me or them? And in that space between their words and your response, something sacred happens. Clarity. You realize that most of what people say is a mirror of their own pain. Their criticism is a reflection of their own insecurity. Their disrespect is a reflection of their own inner chaos. And suddenly you're not holding their words like bricks anymore. You're watching them pass like clouds, real, but not permanent. Heavy, but not yours to carry. You begin to respond from a place of awareness, not emotion. You realize that your peace is not a fragile thing that needs to be protected from the world. It's a grounded thing that gets stronger the less it depends on anything outside of you. That doesn't mean you don't feel. You're still human. But now when the emotion rises, you breathe with it. You don't run from it. You don't fight it. You observe it like weather passing through. You say, "I'm noticing anger," not "I am angry." There's a big difference. One is identity. The other is experience. And when you learn to separate who you are from what you feel, you take your power back. You stop letting the world define you. You start choosing who you want to be. No matter what anyone else throws your way, replace "how dare they" with "why does this bother me so much?" That question will take you places you've been avoiding your whole life. It turns the focus inward, not in a self-blaming way, but in a self-liberating one. Because what bothers you the most often reveals where you've left parts of your peace in someone else's hands. When you get triggered, when your chest tightens, when your thoughts race, that's not the enemy. That's the invitation. That's your system saying, there's something here, a story, a fear, a wound that's still open. Your anger is not your enemy. It's a flashlight, pointing to where your peace still depends on someone else's behavior. And that is gold. That is the beginning of real emotional freedom. Because when you live with detached presence, you stop needing the world to be safe for you to feel safe. You stop waiting for people to act right for you to feel right. You learn to hold your own ground, no matter how unstable others may be. You stop being a reflection of their chaos and become a mirror of your own clarity. And that's when people begin to notice. That's when they say there's something different about you. But it's not because you became colder, it's because you became calmer. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped needing. You no longer beg for peace, you become it. And once you do, no one, not their words, not their moods, not their absence, can take it from you. Number 4, the power of neutrality. There's a certain kind of strength that doesn't make noise. It doesn't shout back. It doesn't seek revenge. It just stands, quiet, unshaken. And in today's world, that kind of power gets misunderstood. People think neutrality means you're weak, that you're passive, that you don't care. But that's not true. Neutrality is not weakness, it's mastery. It's the kind of emotional discipline that comes from doing the hard inner work. It's not that you don't feel. It's that you've learned not to hand your emotions to anyone who knocks on your peace with chaos. Picture this. Someone tries to provoke you. They make a jab, throw a sarcastic comment, maybe even call you out in front of others. It's bait, and you know it. Your old self, you'd bite, you'd snap back, you'd match their heat just to defend your pride. But now, you breathe, you blink, you stay still, you don't shrink, and you don't fight. You just observe, and suddenly their fire has nothing to burn. They escalate, trying to get a rise out of you, but you're not playing the game anymore. And just like that, they lose power, because you didn't fuel the fire. You didn't hand them the reaction they were hoping for. And that silence, That stillness, it speaks louder than any argument ever could. This is where your real power lives, in your neutrality. It's the space between what they say and how you choose to respond. It's not indifference, it's intelligence. You're not cold, you're clear. You've stopped confusing noise with importance. You've stopped mistaking urgency for truth. You know now that not everything deserves your energy. Not everything needs a response. Not every fire needs your spark. That's your new mantra. Say it with me. Not everything needs a response. Not every fire needs my spark. It sounds simple, but it's life-changing. Because every time you choose silence over reaction, peace over pride, clarity over chaos, you reclaim your energy. And when you reclaim your energy, you start living from your center, not from your triggers. You stop being a puppet pulled by emotional strings, and you start being the anchor in every room you walk into. Let's be clear, detachment is not apathy. You still care, you still feel, you still love deeply, and speak honestly. But you no longer cling, you no longer collapse when someone else withdraws their attention. You no longer bleed just because someone hands you a knife. You've built a stillness inside of you that doesn't disappear just because someone else is loud. You've learned how to hold your center, even when everything around you tries to pull you off balance. And maybe they'll still throw stones. Maybe they'll still talk. Try to get under your skin. Try to test the boundaries you've built. But now, you've built a house they can't shake. A house made of emotional discipline, quiet confidence, and an unshakable knowing of who you are. They may come with chaos, but you've come home to yourself, and there's nothing more powerful than that. Number 5. Training your emotional muscle. Here's the truth. Most people avoid. Emotional peace doesn't just happen. It's not some magical state you stumble into after a few deep breaths or one meditation session. It's a muscle, something you build with repetition, with intention, with effort. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more you use it. But you don't start with heavy lifting. You start small. You start by noticing. On day 1, just observe your triggers. Don't judge them. Don't fight them. Just watch. What makes your chest tighten? What steals your focus? What words or looks or silences make you shrink or react? Write them down. Give them a name. Because you can't change what you won't face. And you can't free yourself from what you refuse to acknowledge. On day 2, the challenge is simple but powerful. Every time you feel the urge to argue, pause, count to 10. Breathe like your peace depends on it, because it does. This isn't weakness. This isn't losing the fight. This is reclaiming your center before someone else drags you into theirs. It's choosing presence over pride, strength over reaction. Because sometimes the real flex isn't the clapback, it's the calm back. Day 3 will stretch you a bit deeper. Take one piece of criticism, something that stung, something you're still holding, and instead of defending yourself, ask, what if there's something useful here? Not because they were right, but because you're strong enough to look for insight, even in the mess. Growth isn't about being perfect, it's about being honest. And sometimes our biggest breakthroughs hide inside the things we least want to hear. Then comes day 4, the hardest and most freeing. Practice non-response. Someone will be rude, dismissive, passive-aggressive. Normally you'd tense up, you'd fire back, you'd match their energy to prove your worth. But not today. Today you let their energy pass through you like wind through open hands. You don't resist it. You don't absorb it. You don't fight it. You just witness it. Because when you stop matching their chaos, you start mastering your own peace. And finally, on day 5, you write a statement of detachment. A sentence that becomes a shield, a reminder, a mantra. Something like, I no longer need to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding me. Let that sink in. Because the moment you stop trying to explain your worth to people who don't see it, that's when you finally start to feel it for yourself. This isn't about becoming emotionless. This isn't about pretending nothing bothers you. This is about becoming emotionally sovereign, where your inner world is so grounded, so solid, that no one gets to invade it without your permission. And sure, you'll still feel things. You'll still hurt, but you'll no longer be controlled by those feelings. You'll no longer be reactive. You'll be responsive, calm, clear, whole. So ask yourself this. What if your strongest flex wasn't how fast you can clap back, but how deeply you can remain calm when everything tries to pull you out of alignment? What if peace wasn't something you visit, but something you become? That's what emotional muscle looks like. Not loud, not flashy, but steady, intentional, unshakable. And it starts with 5 quiet days of choosing yourself over and over again. Number 6. What you become when you're unbothered. Imagine this. You walk into a room where the air is thick with judgment. People are gossiping in corners, throwing glances laced with assumptions. Someone cracks a joke with your name woven in between the punchlines. Another pretends not to see you at all. And yet, you walk through it like still water, calm, collected, present. Not because you don't hear it, not because you don't feel it, but because you've built a kind of peace that doesn't ask permission to exist. You've trained your soul to be still, even when the room is loud. You've stopped giving your energy to performances that were never worth the ticket. You no longer need the room to understand you because you finally understand yourself. There's something powerful about a person who doesn't flinch when challenged, who doesn't need to correct every false assumption, who doesn't rush to defend their character because their integrity speaks louder than their mouth ever could. This version of you, this unbothered version, speaks less and observes more. You're not detached out of arrogance, but out of alignment. You're grounded. Your energy isn't scattered chasing people's approval or dodging their rejection. You've stopped auditioning for rooms that don't even know how to value your presence. Your silence is no longer weakness, it's wisdom. You know exactly who you are, and you no longer hand that knowledge to anyone reckless enough to mishandle it. You no longer walk away because you're afraid of confrontation. You walk away because you know not every war is yours to fight. You've learned that walking away isn't a retreat, it's a declaration. A reminder to the world that your peace is worth more than being right, that your sanity is more valuable than proving a point, that your energy is sacred and it's no longer available for cheap transactions. You've become the person who knows how to stay when it matters and let go when it doesn't. You don't chase, you don't beg. You don't linger in rooms where your soul has to hold its breath just to be accepted. And the beauty of being unbothered, you don't lose anything. In fact, you gain everything. You gain your time back, time you used to waste rehearsing arguments in your mind. You gain your energy back, energy you used to drain trying to make people like you. You gain your dignity back, the kind that comes when you know who you are and don't need to shout it from the rooftops to feel valid. You start building a life that feels good on the inside, instead of one that just looks good from the outside. You stop reacting to what doesn't deserve your attention and start responding to what truly aligns with your values, your growth, your soul. There's a stillness in you now, a quiet power. You walk into chaos, and people can feel the shift. They don't know what changed, but something about you doesn't move the way it used to. You don't bend, you don't shrink, you're not performing anymore. And because of that, you become magnetic, not because you're loud, but because you're clear. Not because you demand attention, but because you radiate presence. People start to notice not because you tried to be noticed, but because peace has a frequency. And once you start operating at that level, only those tuned into it can meet you there. You've become the kind of person who no longer begs for peace. You embody it. The kind of person who doesn't just survive the noise, but who transcends it. You don't respond to every poke. You don't pick up every invitation to argue. You've realized that your worth doesn't live in someone else's acceptance. It lives in your stillness, your restraint, your decision to stay grounded no matter how loud the world gets. And in that stillness, you finally found your strength. You thought peace would come when people finally treated you better, when they spoke kindly, when they stopped dismissing you, when they saw you, heard you, valued you. And for a while you waited for the apology, the change, the recognition. You thought if they just acted right, you could finally feel right. But real peace, it began the moment you realized they don't have to change for you to be free. That freedom was never in their hands. It was always in yours. in your breath, in your pause, in the space between the trigger and your response. You see, the twist is this. It's not about them anymore. It's about you, your nervous system, your awareness, your energy, your response. And that is power, not the kind that demands control or dominance, but the quiet, grounded kind that holds itself together, even when everything else is falling apart. The kind of power that doesn't shout, but whispers. I don't need to match your chaos. I choose peace. So here's your challenge for the next 7 days. No matter what happens, no matter who says what, don't react, don't argue, don't absorb. Just notice, just breathe, just stay centered. Let people have their opinions. Let the world do what it does. Let life unfold without needing to grab it by the throat. Because the real flex in this world, it's not the comeback. It's not the last word. It's not the fiery defense. It's staying calm when everything is trying to pull you out of alignment. It's being so deeply rooted in your own clarity that nothing shakes you. Not their judgment, not their rejection, not even their silence. If this video cracked something open in you, something tender, something true, don't just let it sit in your mind. Let it move through your life. Let it shape your choices. Let it shift your energy. And if you're ready to reclaim the peace that's always been yours, drop a comment below and say it out loud. I choose peace, not just for today, but again and again, moment by moment. Share this with someone who's been carrying the weight of other people's opinions for too long. Because a calm soul is contagious. And right now, the world doesn't need more noise. It doesn't need more rage or more reactivity. It needs more calm. It needs more stillness. It needs more you.